What do you really want in your life? Do you think everybody has a calling? We are all looking for the same thing. What inspires you? Can we heal from everything? How do we live an awakened life? Why do you think we're here as human beings? To say yes to life, you got to start saying yes to life experiences. On this Super Soul Sunday, you love Warrior Woman. I think Glennon Doyle Melton is a breath of fresh air and a name you should know. She's a new kind of spiritual teacher who's striking a chord with millions.
If a woman has a choice between saving her soul and saving her marriage, she needs to save her soul.
Glennon first gained a worldwide following as the beloved blogger who bared her soul on her wildly popular website, momastery.com. Her first book, a raw and gripping memoir called Carry On Warrior, made Glennon a New York Times best-selling author with legions of diehard fans who believe sharing the truth of our lives, all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, is the key to unlocking a true spiritual connection.
Which is why it's so powerful when you can tell the story of what's going on your inside with your words.
And later in today's Super Soul Short, a young chef's winding road to recovery and reconnection through the soul-stirring food of his family.
It's a story of restoration. It's a story of my childhood.
So I love Love Warrior.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's, before I even knew anything about you, read the book, and I felt like I knew you. I felt like you were a friend. I felt like you were a voice that spoke for multitudes of voices. Glennon calls her new book, Love Warrior, the biggest, loudest, wildest, truest thing she's ever put out in the world. I chose Love Warrior for my latest book club selection because of its bone marrow truth and the refreshing way Glennon describes her path to God and to her core self. I was struck by this, what you talk about in the very beginning of Love Warrior, about being a pretty little girl. And I was thinking, wow, gee, because pretty was not a word that I would ever have used, or anyone would have used, to describe myself as a little girl. I always thought the pretty little girls always had the life that I wish I could have. And so reading Love Warrior and hearing what it felt like to be pretty, and then to feel like you lost that your identity was that. So let me just, I love this when you say, I begin to understand that beauty warms people and smart cools people. I also understand that being loved for beauty is a tenuous situation for a girl. How old were you when you realized that?
Well, I was probably 10, because 10 is when I became bulimic.
10, you became bulimic, but then there's that you start the book talking about, going to the ball games and being there with your father in your father's arms and your mother's smile and walking in and everybody always saying, what a beautiful little girl, what a beautiful little girl.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the world wants girls to be pretty and small and quiet. And as long as I was able to stay pretty and small and quiet, everything would be fine. And the second I figured out that how can you be a successful girl if the purpose of being human and growing is to grow and to find your voice? So it's a setup, right? If to be a successful girl, you have to be small and quiet, but to be human, you have to become big and have a voice.
And so everywhere you would go and people would say how pretty you were, you came to understand that that was a responsibility to people, right? That they somehow had an expectation from you. Yeah.
Or maybe it was like a power. I don't know.
Yeah, like it was a power.
Yeah. But I'm also a girl who, so when I was a senior in high school, I was admitted to a mental hospital for bulimia and depression. And then the week after I got out of the mental hospital, I was sitting on a homecoming car, waving in the homecoming parade with a sash across me that said, leading leader of my class. And I remember sitting there thinking, where do these people want to follow me to? But it didn't matter because I was following the rules on the outside, And so that's when I figured out, like, people who need help often look like people who don't need help.
Right.
The rules of high school are, be pretty, be quiet, follow the powerful boy's lead. Like, I actually was. I was following the underground rules of high school pretty well. it's just those aren't the real rules of the world.
So let's start with pretty, pretty, pretty. Everybody tells you everywhere you go. Family looks perfect. Everybody thinks everything's perfect. And then you're in the room with cousins. I think you were about 8, right?
Yeah.
And you see them flitting around and they are small. And you realize that you are growing. And you feel what?
Afraid, other, scared, lonely. I was really self-conscious. I think there are some kids who just aren't self-conscious. I see them. I just always was very self-conscious of my body, and I felt other. I felt separate.
Well, of course you would if you are objectified at a very young age, where everywhere you go, people tell you how good you look.
Yeah.
So then you have that expectation for yourself as a little girl. Well, I've got to be pretty, otherwise people are not going to notice me and pay attention to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anytime you have an identity that's in something that can be taken from you, you're afraid.
You're afraid.
So I think I was afraid because I knew that being a pretty girl is something that could be taken from me, and is taken from everyone when they're 12. Right? The end of the game was soon. I could feel it coming on
Everybody
my skin.
has that duckling stage coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we all look like we just came from part platypus, part duck, yeah.
How do we make it through?
How do we make it through?
Sheesh, it's
Yes.
early humbling. But I don't know, I just think I was a really sensitive kid, and I think I figured out that addiction was a place to hide. It's a hiding place. You know, love and pain are so risky. And I think I figured out early that I was someone who couldn't handle either. And so why not hide? You know, addiction is just a little hiding place where sensitive people can go so we don't have to be touched by love or pain.
Yeah. And there was another epiphanal moment. I don't know where this is in the journey, but I think you were standing outside church and someone came up to you and said, you know, you're just so perfect. You're just so perfect. And you are looking confused, right? They're saying you're just so perfect. And you came to the conclusion that when people see...
Yeah. Well, I mean, because of what our culture tells you is success,
Yes.
if you are a person who happens to be thin and is wearing, you know, nice jeans, people think that you have all of the universe's secrets in your pocket.
Right.
You know, and it's very interesting.
Oh my God, especially if you
whole-
got the jeans.
Oh, forget it. If you
Forget
have
it.
on skinny
Forget
jeans, you
about
have zero.
it.
The rain has never fallen upon your head. No.
Yes. But I was saying to producers, it's just changed. Now you have on skinny jeans, you have on, you know, you're driving the right car. Every generation has its standard. It used to be, you know, you're in the church, your kids come to Sunday school, they're polite in front of people, you make the best Jell-O mold. You know, we change whatever it is, but
So glad it's not the Jell-O
I'm
mold
so
anymore.
glad it's not the Jell-O with the fruit in it. Yes.
Yeah. I think that's what, and we all have these, you know, perfect outsides, or we try to make our outsides perfect. But I think that's what was so powerful to me the first time I went, my first recovery meeting.
Yes.
After high school, Glennon says her bulimia was replaced with a toxic mix of booze, boys, and drugs. The stranglehold of drug and alcohol addiction was so strong, Glennon says she never allowed herself to ever come down from a high. She lived in near total darkness, avoiding daylight, and waking only after the sun had gone down. In her first memoir, Carry On Warrior, Glennon described her rock-bottom moment when she was 26, hungover on the bathroom floor, holding a pregnancy test and shaking.
When I found out I was pregnant and decided that I wanted to be a mother, but more than I wanted to be numb. That's the first time I wanted anything more than I wanted to just be numb. And my sister picked me up off the floor of the bathroom and took me to my first recovery meeting. And I remember sitting around this circle and thinking, oh my God, these are the first honest people I've ever met in my life. These are my people. They are all jacked up. They are.
A lot of problems. Yeah.
But we're all jacked up, right? And their outsides matched their insides. It was a relief. Sitting at that meeting was the first time where I figured out, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can be a sober, vertical human being. Those honest people.
So for you, the addiction, the bulimia, you were running from what? You were afraid of what?
I was afraid of pain. I really thought of myself as broken. I thought of myself as someone who could not handle pain. And so I hid from it.
And what had broken you?
Listen, I just think I used to, nothing. I used to think I was broken. I wrote in my first book that I was broken. And now it just makes me mad every time. This is why writing words in books is so precarious.
Because?
This is why Jesus only wrote in the sand. Right? Like I hate that I wrote that. I don't think that I'm broken at all. So this is what I tell people about being sensitive, just being a sensitive human being. I no longer think that I'm a mess. I just think I'm a deeply feeling person in a messy world. Totally different.
Yeah.
You
respond to energy different.
Absolutely.
Many families have children who are the sensitive ones. And a lot of families, I never forget this on the Oprah show years ago, somebody said, the child there's no such thing as a black sheep of the family. That every black sheep is the person in the family who energetically responded to everything around them in such a way that they absorbed all of the other family's energy, conscious and subconscious, and they absorb everything around them environmentally differently than the rest of the family.
And they're a gift.
And they're a gift. Yes.
As opposed to considering the fact that these might be sensitive people who are responding to a broken world.
Yes, yes, yes.
Coming up,
it is very hard for the world to hear the truth from a woman. It's easier for the world to hear the truth from a man.
and later in this week's Super Soul Short, there's so many spiritual paths to redemption. A young chef shares how he found his way.
The highs are really high, but I don't know, it seems like the heartbreaks are really hard, but I'm more equipped to deal with it than I've ever have been.
Glennon Doyle Melton sees life as both brutal and beautiful. She calls it brutiful. As a self-described recovering addict to everything, Glennon says her life's work through her 2 best-selling books and hugely popular blog, Momastery, is to wake up every day, say yes to life's invitation, and let millions of women watch her get up off the floor, walk, stumble, and get back up again. I know so many readers will see themselves reflected in the pages of her new book, Love Warrior. That is one of the many reasons I chose it as my latest book club selection.
You say, we, especially women, find out very early in life that there is a system to telling the truth that splits us in two.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that.
Yeah.
Sister Glennon?
Yeah. I mean, I felt split into my entire life. There is the part of me on the outside that's saying the things that I'm supposed to say. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. I'm fine, everything's good. Marriage, it's like Disney. Parenting, fulfilled.
Yeah.
And then there's the part on the inside of me that's like scared and lonely and confused a lot. Mm-hmm. And what I think that happens is I really think that we are all truth tellers. I think we are just made to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. And so I think that it is very hard for the world to hear the truth from a woman. It's easier for the world to hear the truth from a man.
Yes.
But since negative emotions are less acceptable from a woman,
right,
we end up sometimes telling our truth in different ways than words, dangerous ways. Like, this was the food for me, the booze for me. I think we tell the truth with something. Everybody tells the truth with something, whether it's they say I'm not fine with a credit card, or they say I'm not fine with overeating, or they say I'm not fine with booze or sex, or unkindness, or whatever it is. Which is why it's so powerful when you can integrate those two selves and tell the truth, the story of what's going on your inside with your words.
Absolutely. But you also say that every little girl is told at some point that the world does not want to see the ugly, afraid, secret version of who they really are.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
They just want to hear, I'm fine.
Yeah, but the other truth is that some people are desperate for it, like they need air.
Right.
That it's worth all the rejection you get when you're real, because because every time you tell the truth, it just clears the field for other people to tell their truth. Okay. And then the truth gets bigger and bigger.
And was the breakthrough the first time you went to a recovery meeting where you just went, oh wow, these are my people?
Because I thought, oh, this is the way you can do life. Mm-hmm. You actually don't have to do the shiny, perfect thing. You can get through life by showing up and saying, okay, it actually is this hard, and I need help. I need a higher power, and I need you. And that's how we're gonna get through this thing together. I mean, I wanted to cry at the end of the first recovery meeting when I figured out that you have to leave. Like, you're gonna send me back in there? You know? And so I just wanted to make my whole life into just a recovery meeting.
And in many ways you now have, wouldn't you say? When did you first decide that you were going to blog it?
Well,
What was
I tried
behind
to tell
that?
the truth in the real life
Yes.
a few times.
Yeah.
I remember after I brought my littlest home, I was staying home with my 3 kids because that is an amazing idea for someone with high anxiety. I was just dripping with babies and I remember going to a play date, and the woman turned to me and said, so how do you feel? Like, you've got the 3 babies at home, how do you feel? And I thought, awesome, we're gonna talk about how we feel. And I remember, because I'm a metaphor girl, right? So I'd been working on a metaphor for how I felt. So I said, okay, I don't know a lot about science, but I know there's like 2 different kinds of volcanoes. And the first volcano is an active volcano, and the second one is a dormant one. And the dormant volcano looks calm on the outside, but inside she's like bubbling with boiling hot lava that at any moment could just explode and kill everyone in the vicinity. That's how I feel as a stay-at-home mom all day. And by the way, that's perfect. That's exactly how it feels. It's an amazing metaphor, but everybody just silence and just like wide eyes. And I had that moment where I was like, oh, we're not doing that here.
Oh, you didn't mean how I really felt.
So then I said, okay, what I meant is that I just love every minute of it. I hate when they sleep, I just stare at them. And I think if there's one word that would describe how I feel as a mother, it would be fulfilled. That's how I feel, is fulfilled. And then we ended the moment. And I thought, okay, well, we're not gonna be honest at play dates, all right? That's a shame. So.
But saying that is what made the other person feel comfortable, feel a sense of relief.
Probably,
like,
or afraid for me,
or
I don't
afraid,
know.
Or
maybe some calls to people,
like,
I don't know.
God, that Glennon's not right.
Right,
Something's not right with her.
So then, I actually I was desperate for a place to tell the truth. I knew I needed that for my sobriety. You know, to just stay naked and unashamed, like this is me, and I don't think it's a mistake. So I knew I needed a place to tell the truth, and I actually did start feeling this invitation to start writing. Like, it felt like an annoying tap from God, like,
Really?
get off the couch and start writing. But I ignored it because I just love watching TV. Oh, God. So one day I was passing the computer, and I saw this thing going on Facebook called the 25 Things.
Yes.
So my friends were just like making lists about things about themselves, and I thought, awesome, I can make a list. So I sat down at the computer.
Those are 25 things you don't know about me.
Right,
Yes,
right,
okay.
yes. And so I walked away, and 2 hours later I came back, and Oprah, there were like, my list had been shared all these times from my personal page, and I had 27 new emails, and I thought something, and
your sister called?
6 times.
Yeah.
So that's our bat signal for like I've done something inappropriate that's going to require a lot of cleanup on her part.
Yeah.
So, so then that's when I thought, oh, I really should have read someone else's list before I did mine. So this is my number 6. I'm a recovering food and alcohol addict, but I still find myself missing booze in the same twisted way that we can miss people who repeatedly beat us and leave us for dead.
That was your number 6. Okay.
It's true.
True.
But here's my friend Sarah's number 6. My favorite snack food is hummus.
Wow.
Oprah, all of mine were like that. Like all of that was like the most lighthearted one. And so I thought, oh, we're not doing that here either. We weren't doing that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to die. I just wanted to just take it all back. But then later that night, I started opening those emails from people. And they were from people who I had known my whole life, but I had never really known. Because these emails said things like, oh my gosh, Glennon, I just read your list, and I've been bulimic for 12 years, and I've never told anyone. Glennon, I just read your list, my husband and I are struggling, we don't know where to turn. Glennon, I just read your list, my dad's depressed, and on and on. And then they'd all be like, I mean, not all of it, because whoa, but like number 4.
Yes.
All of them would say that as a disclaimer. And I thought, this is interesting. This is like, this truth-telling is something that can unlock people. You know, like if we're really
For
meant to
sure.
connect
For
with each
sure.
other, then what are we wasting our time
Yeah.
with this other surface
Pretense
stuff?
thing. Yeah. What are we doing?
Yeah, and I felt connected.
Mm-hmm.
I felt connected, like the real me to the real other people. You know, the stuff we were meant to help each other carry. Yeah.
Yes. And if everybody were being honest, it would be so much easier for everybody to carry it.
Ah.
Because everybody who's going through something, even listening to us now, watching, you think you're the only one. That's why I started the Oprah show, you know. And what I said on the very first day of the show, I want people who are watching the show to know that you're not alone. That was my intention, to know that there's somebody who's felt what you're feeling.
Super Solars, have you ever tried to share your real truth like Glennon did? Well, Facebook or tweet me using the hashtag #SuperSoulSunday. How did it feel to live in that authentic moment? Coming up,
Oh my gosh, we were just sitting there. I thought we were just going to talk about something mundane. I don't know. And yeah, he said, I have to tell you something. He said, I've been unfaithful.
Glennon met her husband, Craig Melton, 16 years ago. She says she had only been sober 10 nights before they decided to marry. After the birth of their second child, Craig admitted to Glennon he'd been unfaithful throughout their 13-year marriage. Glennon says she sat in stillness to process what happened, but ultimately chose to share their private journey with her readers.
When you made a big decision whether or not you were going to talk about Craig in this way, where you were going to out your marriage, where you were going to out the infidelity. So you had been feeling for a very long time, and I know, if you just us talking about this, there are a lot of other people who can relate to this story. You're feeling for a long time the lack of intimacy, connection, blaming yourself for what that is, right?
Yeah.
And then you went to therapy. You're going to therapy. You're going to therapy to try to fix that.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to therapy to try to fix him. That's what I was doing there.
Yeah.
But then one day in therapy, oh my gosh, we were just sitting there. I thought we were just going to talk about something mundane. I don't know. And yeah, he said, I have to tell you something, or I don't know.
There is something I have to tell you.
Yeah. The second he said that, I was like, oh, this is the time in life when everything falls apart. I just knew.
You knew it?
Yeah.
And then Craig said,
he said, I've been unfaithful. And it wasn't, or there have been other women. I think those were the words. There have been other women. And so for us, it wasn't a one-time thing.
So when your husband says that, like, does your heart stop beating? What's going through your head in that moment? What are you thinking? Life as I know it is about landslide.
Landslide. Yeah. Like everything's being pulled out from under you. Because now I can look back and see that there was plenty wrong, but I didn't know at the time. And whenever anyone had told me that they didn't know, I thought they were.
Yeah, but the signs are always there.
Yeah. I always thought, come on. But I really didn't know. Yeah. So that day we separated. I just said, get your stuff and get out. And I don't know. I mean, the lucky thing for me was that I remember knowing, I mean, I'd been through rock bottom before. Like, I'd been through a serious, it felt like an eviction from my life, all right? It felt like someone had handed me an eviction notice from my life. Like, this little life that you've created that you love. Here you go, you're out. But I'd had that before because the pregnancy test was an eviction from my life. The difference was that my life sucked with the first eviction. I mean, I was a drunk. So that it felt like being invited to something better. This one didn't feel like that. This one felt like just
landslide.
Landslide, yeah. I mean, the way I think about rock bottom now, whether it's the rock bottom of my marriage or my individual rock bottom, is that rock bottom is a crisis, okay? It's a crisis, and everyone wants to avoid crisis. But what crisis means literally is to sift, okay? Like a child who goes to the beach,
Sand, yes.
lifts up the sand and watches all the sand fall away, hoping that there's treasure left over.
Yes.
And that's what crisis has done for me. It comes into my life, and I have to watch everything fall away that I thought that I needed, so I can find out what's left over. And what was left over the first time and what was left over the second time is really my faith and my hope and my love. Those are the things that can't be taken from me, right? And I think that's why women who have been to rock bottom, I think that's why they're the brave ones and the kind ones and the wise ones.
That's right.
And the ones who can laugh at the days to come.
Yes.
Because they're the ones who know that the only things you really need are also the things that can't be taken from you. And so fear goes.
Down there at rock bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. I think that really what happened when crisis came in and stripped me of that perfect mom and wife thing, I think I found a truer identity. I really do. And I think I figured out that the only identity that I will ever be allowed to claim is child of God. Like, that's what I was named when I was born. That's who I'll be when I die. And that's the only identity that I have that nobody can come and change or take. And that has made me a little less fearful.
That's so powerful. Yeah. That is high spiritual involvement there, sister. Sister Glennon, that's very high spiritual involvement there.
Well, I have been meditating 3 days in a row. I've been cramming for Super Soul Sunday.
Coming up,
It's not about doing the right thing or the wrong thing. It's about doing the precise thing that's directed to you.
plus how an acclaimed chef found solace and healing in today's Super Soul Short.
I knew that my dreams wouldn't come true if I continued to go where I was going. And I knew something had to change.
After Glennon's husband admitted to infidelity, she says her work was to search for the lessons in the rock bottom of her marriage, while Craig went to intense therapy. Since Glennon and I taped this conversation, she and her husband, Craig, have separated and mutually decided to divorce.
I never believed, Oprah, ever that I needed to save my marriage to save myself. Like, I just always knew that the end of the road was redemption, either way. That if we stayed together, that was redemption. And that if we separated and used the pain to heal ourselves, that was redemption. It's very important for me to say that I think that sometimes if a woman has a choice between saving her soul and saving her marriage, she needs to save her soul. That if your soul or your body or your mind are being threatened in any way by your marriage, then you just go. And you know deeply that there is a big difference between leaving a marriage and leaving God. That there is a huge difference between leaving a man and leaving God.
Yeah.
Because God is every bit of the God of woman as God is of man.
Yeah. Yeah. The tweet is, there's a difference between saving your marriage and saving your soul. You save your soul.
Amen. And God will go with you.
And God will go with
You
you.
leave your marriage, God just comes
Yeah.
with you.
But also beautiful that either way, redemption would have come if you stayed. Redemption would have come if you'd gone.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's when I got my Be Still tattoo, because it seemed like at that time there was just voices everywhere. You know, there were voices of people, even good people wanted to help me, but everybody had an opinion of what I should do. You should stay, you should go, you should... And there was, my only hope during that time was that I knew if I got very still for just a few minutes a day, that I would know what to do next.
How did you know that?
I think, and this is the best way I can describe it because it's so hard to describe. When it's my fear or when it's my mind, it's words. My mind loves words. We're making this excuse to stay. We're arguments. When it's God, it's just a knowing. It's just lower. It's deep. It's a voice that doesn't speak in words. It's like you can be saying words and the knowing comes and is opposite of that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh yeah.
So the fear in the mind is words.
That's why he said be still and know.
Still, I know. Exactly.
Yes.
And you know. And the reason for the going and the coming is because the knowing doesn't give you a 5-year plan. Like, it just only tells you the next right thing. And so today it was stay away. Don't go back for comfort. Don't abandon yourself. Don't do it. And then a week later it was try. You know, it was different constantly, but I had to check in to get the knowing.
That's right.
I don't know what's going to happen. I, for one, know that I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? So the be still and know, it's not about right or wrong. It's not about doing the right thing or the wrong thing. It's about doing the precise thing that's directed to you.
I was struck by something happened to I think it was Chase, who had come to you, and he asked you, Mommy, why does God make things die? Why do we lose things that we love? And your answer to him struck me so. Share that, will you?
Yeah, and it goes with the marriage thing too. I mean, I don't think that God gives us love, other people or animals, or so that we have them forever. I think that God gives us love so that it changes us. And I think that so that we grow. And I think that that is how I feel about marriage too. What I told him about his fish. Because, you know, I really think that, and when we bring up the idea of death, things have to die for new life. I think of love and marriage now as, you know, plants. Like we have annuals and we have perennials, right? And the annual plant blooms for a season, and then the winter comes and takes it out and doesn't bloom again. Perennial plant blooms and the winter comes and it goes away and then comes back. And I think that's what loves are. Like some loves are just meant for a season and they aren't gonna bloom again, right? But what happens with that kind of love is that it goes back into the soil to create richer, newer soil for the next love to bloom, right? It's not that it was wasted. No love is wasted and love never fails. Whether your love is an annual or a perennial, the result of both are new life. So yeah, that's what I think. I think love just comes to love and
Change
pain.
you and to make you better.
Yeah.
So if you've had it in your life, if you had love, however it showed up for you, it was there to elevate you, to change you, and to make you better.
That's exactly right.
And you know what I loved? I loved Chase's response to that. He said, I can believe that.
Isn't that great?
I think that's great.
Sometimes I give them faith answers and they're like, come on. But that one was believable.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
Coming up,
Pain is a traveling professor, and it just goes and knocks on everyone's door. And the smartest people I know are the people who say, come in and just don't leave until you've taught me what I need to know.
What are you most proud of yourself for right now?
Oh, without a doubt, my sobriety. I'm so excited. I'm a person who, for the first half of my life, was so scared of pain, and I ran from it in so many ways. I just thought I was a person that couldn't handle it, and now I think of pain as like I feel like a scientist who has like discovered this new material that inside of it has life-changing properties, you know? Like, do you remember those commercials where like the second things got kind of uncomfortable, a red button would come up and someone would hit it, and then everybody would just be transported out of the stressful place into this pain-free place? So what happens when we transport ourselves out of the pain is that we miss all of our transformation. Because everything that we need to know to become the people we were meant to be is actually inside of our hot loneliness. So when we jump out of it, when we jump off our mat, we are like caterpillars who jump out of our cocoon right before we would have become butterflies. You know, so all of those easy buttons I was using, mine were food and booze and drugs, but you know, some people's are sex and shopping and
Overworking and unkindness.
I mean, oh my gosh, because when I feel someone's been unkind, I know that all that just happened is that they just felt the hot loneliness, but they don't know how to be still with it. So they just treat it like a hot potato and pass it on to the next person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But pain is not a hot potato. Pain is a traveling professor. And it just goes and knocks on everyone's door. And the smartest people I know are the people who say, come in and just don't leave until you've taught me what I need to know.
To their pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's running away from it. We should be running in it, towards it.
Everybody's afraid of their pain, but what they should be afraid of is the easy buttons.
Yes.
Because that's where the suffering comes in, right? Pain is mandatory for all of us. It's what teaches us. But suffering is optional. That's what I did for the first 25 years. That's what happens when we try to skip over the pain, when we try to like get to the resurrection before the crucifixion. right?
That's
what all of our suffering is.
Yeah.
Is trying to rise before the fall.
You got to get through Saturday.
Yes,
before you can
gotta
hit
get through
Sunday
Saturday.
morning.
That's right.
Yeah, you got to get through
That's
Saturday.
the deal.
Yeah. You are very wise. You are like a super soul vision.
I got a super soul clap. Now I can just die happy.
Super Soul Sunday. Yay, Glennon. What a great job.
Oh, thank you so much, Oprah.
Fantastic.
Up next in this week's Super Soul Short.
I wanted to feel like I was coming home again, like just being redeemed and given back a life that was just free.
In this week's Super Soul Short, Los Angeles-based chef Christian Navarro shares how he stopped hiding behind drugs and alcohol and restored his whole self.
My name is Christian Navarro. I'm a Filipino-American who grew up in Los Angeles. Some people can identify with mac and cheese, but the comfort dish for me is like kare kare. It's oxtail braised in peanuts and like toasted rice and achiote, garlic, onions. And we just kind of cook that one until it gets low and slow until it kind of just melts. It was interesting as I cook it or as I smell it cooking, it kind of like transports me. I remember my mom just making it as a kid. As kids, me and my brother were just kind of dealt a different hand. We lived with my mom. She was amazing. She was a riot. She was partying one night, and my dad knew that she was using. He took my mom straight to the hospital he worked at, and she came positive for cocaine. So we gave my mom an ultimatum, you know, just told my mom, like, if you don't cut it out, like, you're never gonna see the kids again. I wanted to go like pre-med and be a doctor like my dad, and asked him what he wanted me to do, and he just wanted me to be happy, and that's when I made a career change. I decided to start cooking. It was interesting getting into Chicago. Everyone you meet works in a restaurant out there. When I started working in the kitchen, I never worked as hard as I've ever worked in my life. And it goes day after day after day. So we work hard, and afterward we'd play hard, so we'd drink, you know. It put me where I didn't have to deal with my life, but it was, I don't know, it was easier to swallow or easier to handle a lot of things that went on. I was first introduced to actually cocaine was actually in the restaurant. When you get like a bag of cocaine, it's like you start stretching it out, trying to make it last, but it's never enough. I needed it to get through work. Chef used to call me kamikaze. He used to always shake my hand and look into my eyes. It was one of those moments where it wasn't funny to me. It was like, I felt ashamed, you know, when he would do that, I think. I just wanted it to stop, all of it. When I'm toasting the rice, and then when you toast the peanuts and you grind them, you can throw it into a food processor, you can put it into a blender, but I wanted to do it in the mortar and pestle. I think there's more of a connection when you're doing something by hand. I wanted to go old school, bringing me back to that place where my youth and when I was innocent. I ended up following this girl back. That's like California. That's where it was. That's home. That's where I started off. You know, that's where I thought redemption was. And she didn't tell me she had a boyfriend. After that, I started to drink again, and it was always a cycle. It always happened. I was in Hollywood at Bronson Bar with my buddy. I was just too drunk to go home, so I went to go crash at his place, which wasn't too far. And he told me, if you stay the night, he's like, I gotta get up early in the morning. He's like, oh, what do you got going on? He goes, I have an AA meeting. He said, there's some really cute girls there. So I was like, all right, I might check it out. When I hear people's stories, I find myself in them. At my first AA, a lady told her story. It was this line where she said, I was a dreamer. I'm a dreamer and I have dreams and I want to do things. And I knew if I was drinking, it wasn't going to happen. And it was like as if those words came straight from inside me. Because I've always been a dreamer. I always had big dreams. I knew there was always something more promised. Even when I was in Chicago, I knew that my dreams wouldn't come true if I continued to go where I was going. And I knew something had to change. For dessert, I'm doing the bread pudding, and what I love about it is like where it comes from. It's like most of the time you're making this with bread that's just been lying around or just existed, so it's like unusable bread, but you can reclaim it and then make it something new again, give it a new life. But I got sober May 15, 2012. I think the biggest gift I got in my sobriety was being present. Everything is like just being stimulated back into life. The highs are really high, but I don't know, it seems like the heartbreaks are really hard, but I'm more equipped to deal with it than I've ever have been. I just wanted to cook. I just wanted to, because I didn't know what else to do. I started to discover how much I love cooking for others. There's that counterpart that's just on the other end that just makes everything kind of come around. It ties around and everything becomes whole. I didn't know that I had something to offer. I really enjoy making this meal for my mom because it's a story of restoration. It's a story of my childhood. But I wanted to bring those two together because I wanted to feel like I was coming home again, like just being redeemed and given back a life that was just free. And the main dialect in the Philippines is Tagalog, and there's kind of a joke, and they say like, how do you say hello in Tagalog? And they say kain na, which means come eat.
We'll see you all next Super Soul Sunday.